6 o'clock. All right, 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us for the Wednesday, September 6th, 2023 City Council meeting. We'll begin with approving or amending the agenda. A couple changes. Number one, we'll remove the sheriff's report since our deputy won't be here tonight. Number two, I'm going to remove 3.4 from the consent agenda and move it to 7.8 under general business. Anybody else having some changes for the agenda tonight?
No.
Hearing none, I take a motion to approve the agenda with the one or two changes.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Abe. Motion is second to approve the agenda with the two changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Consent agenda. Those items on the consent agenda are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. I think we already removed one item from there. Is anything else anybody'd like to remove separately from the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Jay.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. Motion is second to approve consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on any public forum presentations. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in open forum tonight? If you don't mind, sir, the square button on the microphone, if you hold that down for a second until the green light comes on. Thank you.
My name is Tom Belmont, 8082 165th Street. 20 years, newly retired, kind of at a place where I'm trying to make a decision as to where I stay and go. And I said this in a January city council meeting. I just want to repeat it. This is just the way what you said prior to the election and or prior to becoming a city. And that's, if you like it the way it is, that is the Credit River becoming a city zero way. Keep it that way. Second thing was there's nothing that will change when we become a city that will automatically for taxes. And the last thing was when we become a city in June, things won't change. They won't notice a difference. And I noticed some big differences. And I'm trying to figure out personally what it is the personally the city council has for a vision going forward. So I have some idea of how to plan for my future. I was staying here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Anybody else for open forum tonight?
Mike Cadillac, 7905 165th Street. Couple of weeks ago, the friend Vern and I were driving around Credit River, just driving around looking at sites. I'm just curious about the city signs. Is the signage on track to, or is there a date when the signage is going to go up for these new city signs, or just had a question on that?
Sure. Administrator Reynolds, if you
Yes, right now, we don't have a date when we're looking to put them up. We're still in conversations with the county in regards to being able to put up the planned signs on the county roads where the entrances to the communities are to the community. So that is an ongoing negotiation. there, and then once we kind of move through that, we'll hopefully be able to start putting up signs.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else for open forum tonight? Seeing none, we'll close open forum. No presentations or public hearings tonight. We'll move into general business, 7.1, council committee appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. As we look at this with the resignation of Councilor Lawrence, now the appointment of Councilor Margaret, we are ready to, we need to evaluate our council and committee appointments and kind of go back through them and reassign as appropriate or as needed to those positions and to those assignments. And I think in doing so, as we look at some of the committee appointments, I did make reference that some of them with now the full-time city administrator may not necessarily need a council member assigned to them moving forward. In particular would be the scale service delivery. That is one that tends to be city administrators run around. I think maybe some towns will still have elected officials that go, but mainly certain city administrators. So we don't need a council liaison assigned to that one. I've been attending those meetings. But this is here for council to look at and evaluate, and really anywhere where Brent is assigned, we can consider if we go with a single person or we reassign somebody else, or if there needs to be some reassignments all across. And I guess as I look at it, the scale service delivery, the planning and development liaison, I'm not sure what that liaison's role is, so that's one to talk about, so I understand how, if we're appointing that, how that's to be utilized. And then the cable TV franchise, I'm not sure that that position is needed. I think that's for a contact more, and the staff can do that kind of moving forward. So and then the other one along with this, not only just committee assignments, is Councilor Lawrence was the acting mayor. And so we do need to have council appoint a new acting mayor in the chance that you're not able to make a meeting.
Okay,
Fair.
yes, they were.
One other one's probably not on there, he was the community septic also.
He's the what, Leroy?
He was on for community septics, contact person, dealt with Tyler, those guys, so.
That one is really on staff now, so I
Okay.
think that staff can take on that role, and we work in that. And council doesn't need to be the contact on that one. So,
And the other planning one was generally the first dirt meeting, Brent was available, so. The freebie that we used to have at the county.
I don't know that we had that one on our list for a while though. I think that one got removed from the list for a while. But back to service delivery, I think you're correct, Kathy. That one is generally administrator piece. Council members don't typically attend that one, so we could probably scrap that one from the list. A little, background on the planning and development liaison. We had in a council member, we like to have a council member attend the planning commission meetings when possible. That's kind of a liaison to the planning commission, which is why we assigned that one. Yeah, I think that one's worthy of keeping on the list. And then the cable TV franchise one was, one of those things that we kept on because we do have the two franchises with providers today, and was kind of a contact, but was also kind of as needed when we were working on the contracts and stuff with them. That's just a liaison to be a part of that. So with that, what's you guys' thoughts? You guys want to work down the list? Sure. Okay. Scale representatives, Brent and I had been the scale representatives and attended one of us would attend the Friday morning scale meetings.
Is it weekly?
No, monthly.
Monthly?
Yes, so it'd be the second Friday of every month, and it's 7:30 to 9 a.m.
And anybody can attend.
Yeah. It's open to the public meeting, yeah. Absolutely. Is there, if there's somebody who has,
Anyone want to do it?
I can, I have kind of a freed up schedule now.
okay. I'd be more than happy then if we added Jay to that assignment. Fire department liaison, so this was kind of, when we work with our contractor Prior Lake on different items, we usually, one or two of us attend those meetings. Brent and I had been doing that. Brent had the history with that contract since in 2008, when they renegotiated that contract with Prior Lake for the first time in many, many years, and it has the basic format of the contract is still today. I'm happy to continue my side of that one, if anybody else would like to take the other side of it.
I have plenty of experience.
Okay. We can add Jay to that one too, if everybody's agreeable to that. And likewise, we do the same thing with the sheriff's department and working with our contract on that end of it.
I could take that.
Okay,
I have a
Bill?
lot of experience negotiating contracts.
Sure. Next up, the Savage Prior Lake Liaison. So we do meet often, usually about at least once a year with each of the cities as mutual business in that. And that's usually attended by staff, some of our members of staff and one or two council members. Again, I'm more than happy to keep my position on that one if somebody wants to take Brent's spot.
I'll take
You want that one? Sure. Okay. We do have a Savage meeting up on the calendar. In October.
It's in October.
Okay.
Usually like
Good.
7:30 or something. It's
Yeah.
early morning.
Yeah.
Get forward into.
And then likewise with Scott County, we do meet with Scott County quarterly. And again, it's one of those things we'd like to have one or two council members attend that meeting with staff.
I can do that.
Jay?
Sure.
Okay. Now, we don't often meet with the neighboring townships, but in that situation, we had Brent and Jay assigned to that. Jay, if you want to stick with that,
Fine with
you
staying
want
with
to
it.
have one other person take Brent's spot on that one,
I'll do that one.
Leroy?
Yep.
The other one that Brent was on was the finance committee.
I'd like that.
Okay, we'll move Bill on finance committee.
You were gonna get nominated anyway.
I'd like to have Bill take my spot on planning.
I was gonna go back to that one and
That's
wonder if that was, okay,
Unless there's disagreement there.
no, I'm good with that. And then honestly, the cable TV franchise thing probably isn't something that's gonna come up within the next year anyways, so. I think we just remove Brent's name and then the chance that something comes up, Abe. You don't mind being part of that. So the last one then becomes acting mayor. Anybody want that one? I mean, I would suggest Bill Market on that one. His experience as planning commission chair to me would fit that role.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
If everyone else is,
unless somebody else
they've been
wants
on it
that.
longer than I have.
Okay,
It's yours.
did we catch all the changes, Kathy?
Got it all.
Perfect. All right.
The acting mayor should be voted on. The rest of it, we had agreement in the head nods, that one's fine, but the
Okay.
acting mayor, because it is a statutory appointment.
So,
should be a
So can I make that motion of Bill being?
I'll second.
all right, so we have Abe and then Jay. So we got a motion and a second to appoint Bill Market as acting mayor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I abstain. I don't think I'm supposed to be.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I didn't hear you vote, so. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstainment. Kathy, is there anything else on that piece that you need from us?
No,
right.
that one's good, thank you.
Perfect. So then we'll move on. 7.2 Dominion voting quote.
Right, council, Mayor Council, we had this on the agenda previously. For the Dominion voting machine, the tabulator and accessories with the addition of the second precinct. And the statutory or the legislation change this year that requires 18 days of early voting prior to each election. We do need a third machine to service those pieces. Additional information was requested after the last vote on this one. And we've sent some of that one out, but Dominion system is one of 5 systems that are currently approved for utilization in the state of Minnesota. Scott County, as the election administrator, has a contract with Dominion for the maintenance and servicing of the machines. They're the ones that are responsible and do the programming of the machines. And so they take care of all the maintenance contracts on all 2 of our current machines. And would on this machine as well. We're just responsible for the purchase of it. Like I said, once we had adopted using the electronic tabulation machines, legislation passed this year does not allow us to go back to a hand counting situation. So we are required to stick with, electronic tabulation means. So we do need the machine to move forward with our 3. It's creates. There's some ways to go, but it creates an administrative burden and a lot of additional time on our election judges. I mean, it's a long days of elections and just more room for error if we don't have it. So we would recommend the approval of the machine and allowing us to get this ordered before we start having elections coming up. We are looking at 3 elections during 2024. And there is a special election, I believe, coming up yet in 2023 for the Lakeville School District, which we can probably get around in that meeting machine for that one. But the 3 elections in 2024, we will need the machine for.
Yeah, I think the school district usually brings their own stuff. Yeah, they just need the facility usually.
So happy to answer any questions on that.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Bill.
So I was looking through the statutes and are we eligible for any grants to help cover the cost? Because there is a clause in the statutes that cities can ask for a grant to help pay for this. Are we eligible or did we look at it or is it so small that they don't even?
I mean, at this point in time, I mean, that's a.
It's too late.
Yeah,
It's really, okay, you can't do it retroactively.
no,
after you-
grants you'd have to apply for, get them approved and do everything. We do have 10,000 in the budget this year for this machine. It was planning for.
Okay. So generally, when we have purchases and all that, do we look to make sure that there aren't any grant monies or not just this, but anything that we do?
We look at opportunities to do that, but I will also caution, if you want to start applying for grants for everything that we're looking to purchase and to do.
You need a
more
grant
staff.
writer.
We need more staff.
Okay,
They take, grant writing, they take accounting, they take reporting, they take follow-up and feedback. We're not, I mean, not to say that we don't apply for grants and we don't look at those for options, but when you're looking at some of this stuff, your administrative burden on our two full-time and 1 part-time employee is going to greatly outweigh your ability and your offset on that.
all right, thank you.
I suppose some point, the cost of writing the grant and getting that stuff
Yeah.
for something this size, probably, or what you would get out of the grant, probably
Covered, yeah.
outweighs the benefit, right? I mean, if we were buying 3 of them all at one time, that might be a different story.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I've got some questions. Why the rush? When I look at the statute, I know Bob gave his opinion, but it says once a municipality has adopted the use of electronic voting system in 1 or more precincts, the municipality must continue to use electronic voting system for state election in those precincts. Since this is a new precinct, I don't think we're bound to that. I think that buying this now for something in 2024, when there's a lot of concerns out there about the tabulator, whether or not it's true or not, I still stand on the side of security. I'm in IT, I do that for a living. When we have machines in outside of our possession and then they get transported here, there is a significant security risk. And I think we should look a little bit further into this before just buying the piece of equipment that we don't have until 24.
I agree with Abe. I got a lot of calls on it.
What's the lead time? Do we know what the lead time is?
I don't have a lead time on it at this point in time. We would need to have it in by March. And I think Bob can weigh in. I mean, I know your counselor.
It's fine. Abe's fine.
Bob had provided a legal opinion in regards to that and does not believe in. Bob, I don't want to paraphrase what you had in regards to the.
Sure.
What's there in that? Can you please address it?
Yes, Mayor and Council, it's a brand new statute. It just got signed into law. There are no cases interpreting it. It's because it's brand new. And so it is there is nothing to be able to give you an ironclad, this has already been litigated and this is the decision of a court. The reason that I expressed an opinion that I think a Scott County District Court judge would interpret the statute to require us to use the electronic voting system is that even though it says those precincts, we used an electronic voting system in the one precinct we had. And those voters are now going and being shifted to a new precinct. Yes, it's a new precinct, but it's the same voters and so I think the courts would look at that as a basis for giving the decision that we had to continue to use the electronic voting system. The other reason I gave that, I don't think I put it in the email to Councilmember Zanto, is that the courts are instructed to try and give effect to the law, to interpret the statute, to try and give effect to what the statute was trying to accomplish. Clearly, the statute, because you didn't have to do it before, and now they've changed it and said that you do have to use these devices if you've used it before, kind of like the state building code. Once you adopt it, you can't unadopt it. I think that the courts would come out in favor of requiring us to use it. But again, there is no case law on that. There is no guidance. I did contact the Secretary of State and they don't have any guidance on this. And of course, they don't give legal opinions or legal advice. So they're not going to touch an opinion like that. But I asked if their office had already to the state legislature given any opinion. They said they hadn't. I also checked and looked up to see if House Research had interpreted the statute in any way and giving their guidance to legislators. And there wasn't anything on this. So my advice to you would be to adopt the electronic voting system for the second precinct. And whether you go with the Dominion or another electronic voting system, it makes practical sense to use the Dominion for all the reasons that the city administrator has already laid out. Thank you.
Remind me, Clerk Donovan, I see you're on, when did we split the two precincts apart?
I
Was it-
believe
Wasn't it before the last election?
it was, but
So we've already done it with electronic for both precincts.
I would have to check that, Mayor Costa, to make sure.
'Cause I thought I remembered that we
Well, we
did
had
that.
2 precincts last year.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then we would have, yes.
then we would have. So we've already used electronic vote counting for the last
Well,
election.
we only had one machine because it was just here. We had 2 precincts, but
And we had two machines.
did we have 2 machines?
We have, because we already have two machines. This would be the third. Yeah,
This would be the third and it's really to service, I mean, it's a backup for the two for the election day, but it's really meant to service the early voting at this point in time as well. Recommend you have the backup available, but with the new statutory 18 days open, you know, in advance of the elections. It's to service the early voting.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes.
Address, I understand your concerns. If this helps at all, I was an election helper in August of last year, and I went through the training with Julie in Scott County. I'm relatively satisfied that there's no monkey business going on, at least in Credit River, related to the machines. Nothing's connected to the internet. That we had, and all the numbers had a balance. I was in a recount then later in November with the election I was in, and nothing was found. So I have a little more comfort than maybe you do, just based on what I saw last year.
Yeah, and to response, you know, is there or is there not? You know, I get paid for my day job to keep things safe. And this is not safe, in my opinion. When you have someone transporting equipment that we don't have control over, it's not safe. I think if I'm gonna get overrun on this, and that's fine. I mean, that is what it is, but I think we should do a check on how it's handled from Scott County. Where is it stored? How's it getting here? Is there
We go and pick it up. Two of us go and pick it up and bring it.
And then it's stored in.
And then we bring it back.
and then what's happening with it when it's there? There's a lot of things that I still have questions on that I would like to go down the path and understand. I get it, if you guys want to say yes, that it is what it is, but I still think we owe it to our voters to make sure we're doing it secure.
And Abe, I think you have the opportunity, if you wish to go, talk with guys, Julie or Julie
Hanson.
and Julie Hanson
Or Sandy.
or Cindy Geis and I'm sure Julie Hanson and Cindy Geis are the ones from Scott County that administered all that. I think they'd probably be more than happy to show you through the process that they take over there. I think the other key piece of this thing is, unless we're going to completely change all three of the voting machines, it would be really, I think it would cause us more of a problem having an oddball at this time than it would be having three consistent ones. Because then we would, Scott County wouldn't maintain it for us if, we can't secure it here as well as they could probably secure it at Scott County. I think that leaves us in a worse spot.
And they gave excellent guidance and help when we had issues. I mean, they're very, they were
Right.
wonderful.
Right. I understand the concerns, and I don't say that I completely disagree with them either. There are, pieces to the chain that may have some, deficiencies to them. But I think that, where we're left at this point is, unless Scott County was to change that whole system, it would be a one oddball piece if we didn't have all of ours consistent.
Well, there's a lot of people that elected me that would want me to vote no, and probably continue to vote no.
What's the alternative?
Not sure. I guess we have to go down that path and figure.
And that was my point is, what's the rush? Should take some time and figure it out. And I'm happy to go down the path of talking to them and understanding what that is. Sure. And coming back in a few months or a few weeks and give an update. Seems to me like we're rushing to buy something we don't need for a while. Now, if there's a huge delay in getting that, that's another point, but I don't know if that's the case either.
Yeah, that could be a problem. I mean, I don't think that we have months to wait, because if we're gonna have this by March.
Well, we got them the other time, we had ordered like a year and a half in advance. So
That's the case, you guys will wait for 2 years.
No, I'm just saying, the first one.
I understand, yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Not sure the delay in getting them, just with everything that you look at in regards to equipment, supply chain and everything else. Delaying delaying the ordering of this system is not going to change the fact that we will be using the Dominion tabulators in both precincts. All will do is increase the administrative burden on our election judges and our election officials. In regards to the early voting and the counting of the early voting stuff at the end. And if we have a failure of a system during the election, we're gonna be without, and it's going to complicate and make more controversial and unsecure our system. So, and I think you need to understand when you look at the elections and you look at all this stuff, systems are never touched by one person individually. There's always multiple people that are involved in the programming when they're looking at things, when they're doing things. They have multiple people involved. They're looking at, they're audited. When they get started, they kind of go through an audit start. They go through an audit at the end of the evenings as they're looking at these. All the results are audited. So there's multiple steps to secure and to make sure they're secure. As Councilor Schoen pointed out, there's two people that go and they transport them. You're not allowed to be alone. With the machine, you're always with somebody else. You always have at least two election judges that are around them. So there is security in that regards, and there's requirements in regards to, how you store and storage of them, even that we couldn't meet those storage requirements here in our current facility. So there is multiple steps in the election process that are there to provide that security that, the normal voter coming in, the normal person that's looking at this don't realize all of the steps that the clerks are going through, that the election judges are going through to take and to ensure the security and the safety and the integrity of the system that they're working through.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion on this one?
I will
Thank you, Leroy. And your motion is to
purchase
it?
Dominion voting
Okay,
machine,
anybody want to second that?
since we budgeted for it.
Could I adjust that motion? Am I able to at least
Sure.
propose it?
Propose your adjustment?
Like, give Abe 2 weeks to go out to Scott County and talk to Julie Hanson and then if he's comfortable with it. Oh, I do this. Then. Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to wait one more month. I don't think that would kill us.
Any information?
Yeah, to gather information, but then we vote on it next meeting. So maybe the meeting 2 weeks from now.
Point of information, can we table it until the next meeting? I think that would be the better.
Yeah,
So if that's what you're
that's what I'm
proposing.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you right delaying your motion for 2 weeks? Or do you think 2 weeks is gonna?
No, we're still gonna have the same argument in 2 weeks, so. But yeah, that's fine, table it.
Okay. I'm okay if we do that, if we give Abe till the next meeting, if he wants to contact Scott County. In an effort to try and become more comfortable with the process and.
Can I get contact information?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, contact information to you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion there to table, motion second vote?
Sure,
I'll motion to table.
Second.
okay. I have a motion and a second, motion by Bill Market, second by Jay Soderbach to table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Here none, motion passes. All right. 7.3, city clerk job description compensation scale, Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we addressed and discussed the city clerk's job description and kind of overall staffing at our meeting back on August 7th. Bringing this back, kind of, we've had some initial budget discussions. We talked further about positions and everything with our budget work session the other after the last meeting. And so bringing this back for council's consideration, our current city clerk does not have a job description. We do need to get a job description in position and place for this one. And also, as we do that, it moves the position from being an exempt position under the Fair Labor Standards Act to being a non-exempt hourly position. So we need to put in a compensation scale for the position. So kind of two steps here. As we look at that one is to move forward. So staff did not hear any comments on the job description, so it's back for council's approval and then to approve the compensation scale for the city clerk position. I did put at council's desk, and I can share if you'd like, the kind of the comparables that we looked at for doing the as I'm trying to present at the same time as I'm trying to talk here, the comparables for how we came up with the scale that is presented to you. And as you look at it, we have comparables for small city. The average minimum is 36.77. We put in a step of 36.38 for our step one, and an average max of 46.40, and our max that we put on our scale. So over here.
4372.
43, thank you. I'm looking at mine. So our small communities, we did reach out to basically all of the Scott County communities and ask them, and then some additional smaller communities, Minnetrista, Carver, Victoria, just kind of trying to see where they're at. So as we look at these small cities, we're looking at responses from Elko, Newmarket, Victoria, Minnetrista, and Carver. The larger cities is really looking at Savage, Prior Lake, and Shakopee salaries. So not necessarily putting them into the direct comparable list, but because they are our competition, they are definitely comparable. In that regards, just because of the position around the metro. So happy to discuss it any further with you, but recommend approval the job description, or would welcome any additional feedback so that we can make any amendments as necessary.
Okay, council members, any questions? Abe?
Yeah, I've got a question. It looks like on that page 21, there was a step maybe 6 that get cut off.
It looks like when the system generated the
Packet.
the packet, it cut off that table. So let me.
So I thought Bill said 4372, but I think that's even higher. Right?
Step 5 is 4372.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there only 6? I apologize.
yeah, there'd be
That's
6
before.
steps.
Okay.
There's 6 steps, and I can.
Oh, it's
I'm
4548 if you can do the calculation, I think. It's 94,588. Is that step 6?
So step 6, we have it city clerk. Step 6 is 4548. And you can see now with the it's small up there. Same table that we did previously. This puts everybody on a scale that matches the scale that was approved for the city administrator, which has the same step increase, variations, and the range is the same across the board, which is a 25% range between your step 1 and your step 5. It's typical communities, their steps usually go around 25 to 30% is kind of the range of the scale as they look at it. So that is kind of the baseline of what we have in front of you.
Steps are based on how long the person's been in the position, the experience level. Or
Typically, the way they work within the government system, when you have a step scale like this, is on your anniversary date, you jump to the next step until you get to the top of the scale.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yes.
In this one, what's the recommendation for a step to start?
With this, for the current salary, basically what we're looking at is current hours worked average about to 20 hours a week. And so looking at the salary that we have for her, it puts her current salary right around 43.68, I think it was. So it would fall in right there at that step 5. And we can leave, what I would recommend is it stays, we have oddities right at the moment, not necessarily full on steps. We can put the salary at the current one and then move it to the step scale of 24. Or we can place her directly into, which is about a 4-cent raise per hour, with where we're looking at the step 5.
Any other comments, questions?
The only other question I had was under your desired qualifications. You have 5 or more years of experience administering elections. How does that work with the different steps? Is that, I know desired is desired, so it's not necessary. Is that if this was to go out and posted for a new position, would we change that depending on what step we're looking for, or are we putting that out there and we might take a smaller, a lower step, or how does that typically work?
If I were to recruit and hire somebody to this today, we put out the job description as it has and those desired qualifications. If somebody came in with, 5 years of an election experience, which obviously would mean that they've been involved in probably a deputy clerk role or a clerk in a smaller community or, something that they're coming in. So I would make a recommendation on a hire to the council of that person potentially at a step higher than a step 1. If they're coming in without those desired qualifications and without those kind of experience levels in those roles, then I would recommend down. So it's not I would look at it and say it's not a mandatory that somebody starts at step 1. If you come in with experience, you start them up higher on your step scale.
And that's pretty typical.
That is
That
very typical.
You've got the range that you say, and they know they're gonna be, okay.
Yes, that's very typical what you're gonna see in government hiring.
Okay, how is this job performed entirely remotely?
That, I mean, we're working with that one and we're doing that, and it's lots of some assistance here with us, scanning and sending and in working with that one at this point in time. That goes into other issues, not necessarily the approval of a job description or a pay scale. And I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But right now, we're looking to get a job description, so
Sure.
we have a scope of work for the position. Which we acknowledge we've had the position working for the city for many years, but what we're really trying to do is get the scope of work put together for the job description. And like I said, it will change based off the scope and how it functions in our community, would change it from an exempt position to a non-exempt position. City clerks kind of run that line between exempt and non-exempt in the communities, depending on the scope and the responsibilities and the authorities. Some are supervised, some don't. And it varies, but the way it works here and within our organization, I can't classify that into an exempt position.
Okay, any other questions or anybody ready to make a motion to approve?
I have one last question.
Yeah. go
I
ahead.
usually say that and I'm wrong, right? Being that the city clerk right now is a part-time, with us putting this in as the job description, does that create some problems for managing expectations for both the employee and for the city administrator, and the fact that we've got, here's your requirements and you're not able to fulfill those because you're a part-time employee?
At this point in time, no, I believe, and as we've been budgeting for into 2024, I believe we can maintain as a part-time. I mean, there's going to be some weeks, especially as we're preparing 3 elections, where she's probably going to be putting in closer to full-time hours. But I think we can offset out, and I think we can keep this at a part-time position for at least 24, and then we'll have to evaluate, if additional hours are needed to go beyond to 25. But I believe into 24. We can keep a part-time going, and that's what we proposed, and that's what we built the budget out, for 2024's budget as.
Okay. Anybody else? Otherwise, again, open any point, somebody's ready to make a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Thank you, Abe.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. The motion and a second to approve the city clerk's job description and pay range. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, moving on to 7.4. Planner job description to compensation scale. Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As we discussed at the work session after the last meeting on the preliminary budget, we had the analysis out of the various options when we looked at staffing, whether it was the kind of three options looked at a permitting tech position and continuing with our city planner, looking at the planner, kind of a planner one position and continuing with our current contract city planner. And then we had an option 3 analysis at the work session of looking at a permit tech and a senior planner and no longer using a contract planner, but bringing it all in-house. At the work session, you gave us the direction to move forward with that kind of option 2, which was the planner 1 and continuing with the contract planner. But really the kind of the planner 1 position starting here. The position would take on the permit, kind of the permit review work that our city clerk is currently doing. And we kind of in her 2 different part-time positions that she's filling for the city right at the moment. Would take the work that she's doing, would take some of the basically the permit review, the permit initial permit work that our contract city planner is currently doing. Takes some of the code enforcement work that I'm doing, would take some of the need for the engineers, the city engineer, to have somebody to come here during our Tuesday morning office hours, because the majority of the questions that they answer during those office hours are basically permit related questions that this planner could take on, along with some initial, the lower level planning work that we're currently paying a contract planner to do. This planner could be at a lower rate for the city, and that kind of was all part of the analysis that we talked about during the budget work session. So along those lines, we're looking for, this is not an approval right at the moment to hire, but to approve the job description that we all said, let's look and move forward with this option for budgeting, and then approve the job scale or pay scale for it. That way we feel comfortable using that as the baseline for our budget planning for 2024. And you're comfortable with that scale that we're using as we build out that 2024, right now preliminary budget going towards the final budget. So this is just kind of trying to set a baseline. So when we get to budget numbers, we know we're building a personnel budget into that 2024 budget that is supported by the pay scale that the council has approved. And I can once again share that pay scale since there's a step missing. And so you can see the planner 1. So this has the alternate positions that we talked about. With the permit tech going from 2996 to 3745, the planner 1 from 32 to 40, and a senior planner from 4065 to 5081. Based off the analysis, if you remember from the work session, the planner 1 actually, while the pay scale is higher, actually is more effective and cost efficient for the city, because we can take some of the work that our city planner is doing and move it in-house, whereas a permit tech would not have the ability to do that plan.
Could I ask a question? Would doing this possibly help to reduce the cost of permits for our residents? On the reviews, things like that.
I guess you would have to, we'd have to look at that kind of moving forward is to see, right, the moment we have. You know, we're projecting with that analysis, we're projecting that it would be cheaper to do this than otherwise, so we'd have to do an analysis of how does that impact those other fees. So there'd be more analysis that we would have to do to be able to.
But there
decide
would be
that.
an opportunity to probably drop some
Potentially.
of the cost of reviews,
Potentially.
especially for smaller permits. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions on that?
I do, and I know I'm kind of getting in budget, so I'll try not to go too far. So if I go too far, I can pull it back. Remind me again, this position would be solely paid by permitting fees is what we came to,
Correct.
or nearly 100%.
Yes, with the analysis that we were doing, we said that the permitting fees would be able to pay for this as is we. Basically, the community development is funded through those permitting fees. And so that is a projection that it could be self-funded through those permitting fees.
Okay. And when I look at the preliminary budget numbers, on page 32, current numbers is 152,996, and with this option, they would actually go down to 139,568, so a savings of whatever that is, 140, about $13,000. That's making an assumption that we're doing a step one
Correct.
based off of the, okay.
Correct. That's based off of using the step one scale that we have that we're proposing. If council wishes to see any changes to the scales, then obviously that we have to start adjusting our personnel numbers. That's why we're here, and I can put up the comparable salaries if you wish me to. display
Yeah,
that.
maybe while you're doing that, a question being, do we think being this is a sole planner and the one and only person that would be doing this, would a step one type of a person even be the one that would be able to handle this type of work, or would we need to probably go a step 2 to 3?
I believe because we still, this envisions still having the kind of our city planner that's contracted. So this envisions that person still being here. And so, yes, a step one could come in and learn the role and learn the job. And because we still have that contract planner with more senior level experience to help mentor them along. I believe. Step one is not unrealistic.
That would also give us an opportunity to cover an overflow by having the contract planner, correct?
Correct.
If we suddenly got busy for, say, 1 or 2 projects that came in out of the norm.
And the contract, we would still be using, I mean, this envision still utilizing our city planner for those larger level developments.
Correct.
Those reviews, this one would be able to handle some of the smaller level developments. I mean, they may eventually get to the point, depending on the workload, that they're handling more of the stuff. As they get there, depending on what kind of workload we're seeing within the city, but the envision right now is the smaller. The smaller permitting issues, the smaller zoning issues, the smaller single plat lots instead of the large larger plats that we're.
And all of the smaller permits,
Correct.
windows.
Correct.
Things like
And being the
Yeah.
coordinator of all of this, right now, we, there's an issue, our city planner is the one that's coordinating between. Here and the building official and soil and water and doing all of that, and it's not efficient or effective at her rates to have her do that. And more administrative, coordination and communication, so this person would be taking on that role as well.
Any other questions, thoughts?
No, I think we talked about it a little bit, the workshop
Yep.
as well, so.
So I'd be ready for a motion to approve the planner job description and compensation scale. If somebody's ready.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jay. I'll second that. Thank you, Leroy. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the planner job description and compensation scale. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to 7.5, Public Works Maintenance Job Description and Compensation Scale.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, at the work session, we did talk about Public Works Department. Guidance was provided, even though discussion is ongoing. The guidance originally was to go ahead and keep working the preliminary budget with kind of the plan, at least my understanding of where we stood on this, was to keep working on the preliminary budget with the plan that we proposed based off the Public Works Department and kind of the gradual build out of that over the next several years. With that in mind, once again, you know, knowing discussions are ongoing and discussions can continue, but that's a preliminary budget. Which gets our high budget, and then we get to final budget approval in December, which can always go down and change. But with that in mind, much like the planner, we'd like to know that council is in agreement with the pay scale that we have developed, and kind of part and parcel of looking at that pay scale is approving that job description, because if we add qualifications or change the job description, we could potentially change what we're looking at for our pay scale for it. So just add some support for knowing that the numbers we're presenting is numbers that the council is in agreement with. We are asking for approval of the job description and then approval of the pay scale for a public works position. And again, I've set up the comparables on the screen right at the moment, so you can see that. As you look, we see 1, 2, and 3, and then a 2 and a 1. So this is looking at one community that has a Public Works 1, a Public Works 2, and a Public Works 3 position. Another community that had a Public Works 1 and a 2, and then some that just have a straight single step.
Same cities.
Yeah, the 1, 2, 3 would be one city, the 1, 2 would be one city, and then the other ones are individual where they don't have graduated steps. And what we'd be looking at is just, you know, a single step, not a Public Works 1 and a Public Works 2 and a Public Works 3. So that's kind of incorporating the range of where they're at. And so that's what the comparables look like. The proposed compensation for the position, starting scale of 2781 to a 3476.
Okay,
Again, the preliminary budget numbers is based off of a step.
thank you, Kathy. Jay, I think you had
Yeah,
Question.
I think it showed up to step 4. Do you have a 5 and 6 on that one?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
up on the
33, 43, 42, and
Okay.
34, 76.
I'm having a hard time reading that up there. Okay. Thank you. So to be clear, we're looking for this approval in order to move forward with the budgeting. We're not looking to hire a person.
No, this is
So-
merely provides some solid base for us to budget.
Yeah.
From.
So if I were to make a motion to approve the pay scale, et cetera, with a caveat that we would need a further approval to hire that position, would that be?
I mean, that is kind of a given. Right now, we're just approving, I mean, we can put it in the motion, but that is where we're at right now. This is an approval of a
Okay.
job description, it's an approval of a pay scale. Which gives us a firm baseline in which to develop those preliminary budget numbers from. And then between now and December, we have those ongoing discussions of whether it stays in or if we're making adjustments, but the guidance we had originally was to move forward with preliminary based on this. And so, like I said, it provides the baseline, and then with final budget, that would be when you'd be authorizing and approving the hire of the FTE for this, if it's contained if we keep it in the budget.
I'll make that motion. If we can, or do you have further?
Yeah, you know, you can make the motion. I just want to run around the table, make sure nobody else has any other questions, comments, but yeah, thank you, Jade. Okay,
I'll second it.
All right, Leroy. So I've got a motion and a second to approve the public works maintenance job description and compensation table. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, let's move on to 7.6, approve selection and contracting with an architectural firm for the government center. Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, we discussed this, I think, last meeting, I think we had some initial. We did the RFP, request for proposals for the architect and engineering firm. We did receive 11 proposals in regards to that request. Councilor Salavak and Councilor Zanto were appointed to be the building committee to assist me with the review of those proposals and to kind of be part of that process moving forward as we looked at it. So they reviewed proposals and we averaged out all the scores and we invited in to interview the top 5 scoring firms. We completed the interviews of the 5 firms. Following that, we had discussions on where we would like to go. We had 2 kind of finalists at that point in time. 2 finalists firms were ISG and BKV. There were some additional questions that we sent out to them and they provided those additional questions. Councilor Saddleback had a set of plans so he could kind of walk through and just see the quality of the work that they were doing and kind of looking at those options. I think the recommendation at this point in time is to select for BKV and moving forward with them. They have, I think, part of the thought process, and I will turn to when the 2 of you talk as well, as they did have a subcontractor that they were bringing in that's a public works expert, and really their ability to help. They threw out there not only help us kind of look at what we need for facility needs as we look at a public works department, but really to kind of help us look at organizationally what would we need and kind of doing a larger assist on that, which was kind of nice. But really their involvement and their engagement and kind of the community engagement and how the process to getting us through this phase 1 for the space needs analysis and looking at what do we need and where are we going, I think was the stronger one. And then they were both very strong and kind of when we get to design drawings and that kind of that phase 2 work in construction. So with that, I'll let the 2 of you add any additional analysis or input.
Jane.
I was happy with both of them, the finalists that we picked. There were a couple that we brought into interview that, you know, as the interview went on, they definitely weren't what we were looking for, I think. The 2 that were there, the one that we're recommending really led with a very, very solid, strong phase 1, which was what we were really looking for. You know, they were both comparative. I did ask to see their examples of their drawings, just to see what they went through, and I went through, just looked at both. I actually felt that the one that we were not choosing maybe had a little better set of notes and correlation back and forth, but both of them had a very, very good quality set of drawings. And it looks like they would both do that. And I think that our consensus was that the one that we're recommending looks like they are going to be much stronger for us in the first part. And we gave them both an opportunity to present that to us. And it's as the second round of answering questions came right back with where I think we landed. So, I don't know if you've got comments.
Yeah, I mean, from a fiscal perspective, BKV was about half the price. Now they had some reimbursables that they'll have that brings it probably about similar.
I think there's
maybe,
yeah.
maybe, it might be lower, it might be higher, but it should be similar. The thing that BKV really said was, they've done some very small projects, so they're not afraid to come into a community that isn't looking for the Taj Mahal and isn't looking for something massive, and just bringing something that can really provide Credit River what we need. And they walked us through, what does that look like? And, Kathy mentioned, the individual that will walk us through there, done a lot of things as far as septics and wells and understands that, has understood Public Works. So I think they really provide a good team. I think ISG provided a team that would do as well, just not quite as first. So yeah, definitely back BKB.
So when you say phase one, what do you specifically mean by that?
The phase one was essentially establishing our needs. Okay, for one, provide, working with, I should really let you say what you wrote the RFP, so.
Okay. Phase one is really, we termed it as a space needs analysis and then the conceptual design. So, space needs really walking us through, what do we need? And what is in our situation, because we don't have the departments, we don't have Public Works was the biggest one. It's walking us through not what we have and what we need for it, but what do we see in Public Works facilities out there? What are people utilizing? What are they doing? And then, so we can take that back and say, what does that look like for us? Do we do this? Do we do, do we do X? Do we do Y? And then kind of making decisions based off that, so they can help guide us through that process. So as we're looking at this, we have people who know what they're doing, know what's going into Public Works buildings, what's going into city halls, and can kind of say, here, look at this. What do you think? How does that fit for us? No, yes, no, where are we going? And also looking at some community engagement. So the community is seeing what it is we're looking at, why it is we're looking at it. How does this fit? What do we see coming forward through all this? Some of that will be some facility tours, lining up some facility tours for us to go look at to say, okay, what do you like? What do you not like? How do you see this working? How do you envision this for you? And doing that process with us. So then once you kind of get through that space needs, then they do a concept design. Concept design is kind of big boxes.
It's not a blueprint. It's
No,
just a high
No,
level
concept design is
yeah.
boxes, it's with square footages. Okay, based off of this, you're gonna have these kinds of boxes. Here's the square footages. You can use that to then really kind of start looking at, okay, what does that look like? You do your budget estimate off of that. You can get that estimate and we can go, oh, no, let's bring this down. Let's, where's that at? And utilizing that piece.
The other thing I think too would be it establishes, they're gonna help us establish the needs and the layout for now and the future. So that we can, even if we're not putting in certain things now, when we need them, they'll be able to be added into that footprint. Rather than eliminating the ability to do that now by making a mistake as we go forward. And I think that's probably a very important part. And along with that, I think with this particular one that we're looking at, I think they're in a better position to tell us what we need today, what we'll need tomorrow. And, and be able to provide an ability to make a decision on that as well. So.
What does the cost piece of this look like? I think you had it in front of you.
Yeah, the cost piece, a specific number you want?
Yeah. This
So
what is the, I know you said there
BKB
was
was,
some-
BKB, if I can say it, is 14,000.
Okay,
ISG was 30. Now, ISG had 0 reimbursables and BKB had not to exceed 22,000. So not to exceed would be get us up to 36,000.
yeah,
So we did press on what those reimbursables were, and I believe mileage, print. I can't remember what else.
But some of those also came into phase 2. So, that's
Correct.
yeah.
Right.
So actually for the phase 1, I think, I think it's a little less.
Phase one, you're looking at as you said, the 14,000, and then the reimbursables, but that also includes your phase 2 work, which you see more with your coming down for construction and so forth. So those that 22,000 is spread out over your phase 1, phase 2. And then you look at your step 2 fee, which is your schematic design drawings, your design draw, construction drawings. That get you there, and then construction, and then post-construction, kind of all goes into phase two. And phase two is, typical way to architect is a percentage of your project cost. And they bid, because we don't have a budget in place at this point in time, 6.2 to 6.7% for their construction fee.
No.
And ISG was 6 to 6.5.
So very conservative.
Yeah,
Versus
so today, however, we're just looking at phase one, the needs analysis.
Correct. It would be the selection for the entire project, but we would only, and the contract would be written, but the contract would be for phase one, and then it would have to be amended to authorize to move forward into phase two.
Yep.
So contracts, your baseline contract would be there for the entire project, but it would take an amendment to do your phase two work.
Okay.
So what cities have they done this for?
It was a long list.
It's a very lengthy list.
Oh, there is a list.
Yes.
Then we don't have to, if
It,
you could send that to me.
There's a very-
I can tell you,
list.
Fridley, Dakota County, Rochester, Chanhassen, Wright County. Or BKV. That was just a very small list that they put in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I can also, they did Shakopee City Hall, they've done a lot of different work for Shakopee, so we've been able to
Got it.
know the quality of the work.
So you call those cities into and just ask them how they know to work with,
Just Shakopee.
just talk to these. How they to work with, good,
They were very good, and Shakopee had
no surprises.
very comfortable with work that they did for me.
Okay. With that, any,
I have a
Leroy.
question. Since we're doing all this building stuff, where the hell are we gonna put it? Shouldn't we look for some land?
I've reached out to a few and have some responses back from people of willingness to talk, so we are in communication and looking at it and looking for it.
I think we have what, 3 actively that we have some communication with that are willing to talk about opportunities right now.
And part of the RFP and process for the architect engineer would be for them to help us with kind of some the site selection work and looking at the sites and giving us an idea. So we're not looking at just the cost of the land, but we also look at the cost of building on that land. So we can take those 2 pieces together, because the cheapest piece of land may cost us more to build. And so we can kind of do that analysis, and that's part of
It's part of phase one.
yeah, it's part of phase one work for the architect engineer and the construction manager. I finished that RFP up for the most part today, so we'll be ready to release that RFP here shortly for the construction manager. And they will also help with that kind of that site selection work, but we do have some properties that we are talking to that have some interest in having those conversations with us at this point.
Mhm. Any other thoughts or questions?
What was the dollar amount that we have in funds right now for land? Sorry, let me be a little more specific with my question. We had some COVID dollars or some dollars. What's that? ARPA?
612.
612. And I thought there was some obligation to spend or allocate those funds by the end of the year. Is that a true statement?
2024.
24.
Be spent,
Okay.
but they can be also declared.
Okay.
2024.
Okay,
And the project by 2026.
600.
612.
627 or something like that? Yeah, was it
What?
627?
No, 612.
612, okay,
600.
So we can use those funds to build some.
to buy something,
Yes.
yeah, unrestricted.
All right, and this is grant money?
That's ARPA funding.
Okay.
That's our COVID dollars that we have.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions? Otherwise, if somebody's ready to make a motion to accept and award the project to BKV as recommended.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Bob.
could I ask that any motion include the award of the
Attorney review.
contract, subject to review and approval of the contract by the city attorney
We will add in attorney review to the motion.
and approval?
To make that.
Yeah, both of them had an unaltered AIA agreement.
There's typically a few changes on the government side that we. Well,
May want to
put
make.
in, but that for government purposes that we usually try and add in, but it's basically a standardized AIA, so architects, architectural firms are
They deal with cities all the time, so they're gonna.
correct.
They're used to the terminology that'll be in there.
But it's a standardized form that we do, and I know there's typically a couple of changes that city attorneys want, but
Mhm.
it should be pretty easy to.
I'll make a motion to approve the BKV as in Victor. Contract for phase one, subject to the city attorney approving the language.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Abe. Motion second to approve the selection of BKV for the phase one contingent on attorney review. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. All right, moving on, 7.7 shoreland ordinance. Cindy, you're gonna introduce that one?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city is required to adopt a shoreland ordinance that meets the state statute requirements. We do have an opportunity and did use it to speak with the DNR about using implementation flexibility to negotiate a component that was important in our community that was not included within the model statute, which is that would allow for a 35-foot height on structures rather than their standard 25-foot height. The DNR has approved the draft ordinance that's in front of you this evening. And the planning commission has also recommended approval of the ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, council members, any questions?
One question for Bill. Did anything change since I was on the planning commission for that?
No, we cleaned it up from what we approved back in December before it got to the city council. So Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no material changes made to the language that we had looked at.
Correct, no substantive changes. There was some formatting changes and just to make it the numbering work and fit in with our ordinance and some conversion issues from Google Docs to Word.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Nope.
If not, I'd take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion is second to approve ordinance 2023-07, the shoreland ordinance. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move back up to 7.8, council salaries, which was removed from consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. We had discussed the city council salaries a couple of meetings ago. And the requirement and the need for putting that into an ordinance and getting this put together based off of the conversations at that discussion, I believe it was August 7th. The council had directed looking at an annual salary for $5,000 and then changing the month, which was a change from the current salary, decreasing it, and then an annual or a month per meeting per diem of $80 versus right now we have $120 for the first meeting of the month and $80 for any other meetings during the month that a council member attends. Council direction had also been to provide some clarity on when the $80 per diems would apply. And so we have drafted, based off of council's discussion, we've drafted the ordinance statute requires us to, if council's changing it, the ordinance, the change in salaries would not take effect until after the next election. Unless it is a reduction, and then a temporary reduction can be in place. For that time period, as the discussion and the salary that was proposed and drafted into this proposed ordinance is a reduction, we can do it before the next general election. We're also looking at the fact that as a new city, there was there's also statutory language out there that provides councils to set the initial salaries, and we have not done that by ordinance yet. So as drafted, this ordinance and these salaries would go into effect on January 1st of 2024. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Abe, you had one
Yeah,
piece that I think you wanted to talk about was B3.
yeah, so when we're talking about the per diem,
Must attend entire meeting.
yeah, must attend the entire meeting. I was pretty strong on not wanting, I was wanting to cut our salary, so this is gonna be contrary to what I was saying then. I think we just need a little bit of language in there for any future council members. If you show up 2 minutes late, technically, you don't get paid. I think we just have to put a little tweak in there and something like, at least half or at least 3/4, 75%, or
8%.
substantial, or something that's,
And then thinking about how do you put the check on that, it was just on your honor sort of thing.
I mean,
I
right
guess
now
we're
it is.
doing it right now.
I mean, we come through and we sign the check. I
Right.
mean,
Everybody reviews it.
I just wanted to clear it up, so it was,
Mhm.
a little more clear, otherwise you start to have some kind of argument.
At what point are you late enough where you missed enough in the meeting not to collect that piece?
Showing up for the adjournment isn't probably. Shouldn't get paid for, but if we're,
How'd that happen?
if I'm missing the pledge of allegiance.
We gave it away.
So. To me, if we left it as entire, that's fine. I just thought it might be worthwhile to just shift that verbiage a little bit.
So what do you propose for the language?
Hang on one second, Leroy jumped in
I think we
first.
should start, leave it for the entire meeting, that way you can do a little butt chewing to the individual. Bring it to their attention. So, yeah.
Yeah,
To be honest, I don't have a strong opinion. I'd go with it. I just wanted to at least have the dialogue.
I was just looking to see if there was a proffered language, that you wanted to put into it, or if you don't want to do a language, that's fine.
I was just thinking substantial, I really don't have a challenge if we keep it entire, but I just want to at least have the dialogue, so for future elections and individuals, they know exactly what it is.
yeah, what if we just changed entire and must attend a substantial amount of the meeting, so that then it kind of leaves it. It's vague, right? But then again, it's back to the on your honor, and then the check and balances as the claims come through. If we have a disagreement with that one, that's where we can, bring that piece up that, hey, I don't believe that you attended a substantial amount if you're showing up again to make the motion to adjourn.
If I
That
could,
was the example.
if you're also, there could be other meetings, which may have a portion that's related to Credit River. And then many other things. So, I mean, are you saying that you need to attend the entire convention? Or the meeting that you're actually there to be for?
Right. And I think in this, we've been discussing council meetings in this particular one, but you are correct that it is not
It
necessarily.
doesn't define.
It doesn't decide that that this is related to just a council member. If you are, for example, if you are designated to be the scale representative. And you show up at 8:30 and that meeting ends at 9. I'm not sure that we should be paying you for that per diem for that meeting, right? But if you're there from 7:30 to 9 for the scale meeting as scheduled, then yeah. Absolutely pay that.
Yeah, and point 2 does say any meeting attended where the city council has designated the mayor or a council member as the official representative of the city council. So it does expand to multiples.
Yeah. Including city council meetings.
Correct.
So are we good with it?
I mean, substantial leaves a lot of vagueness. I mean, it is a hard line with entire.
Yeah,
It's just how how strict are
I think,
we want to be?
I mean, I would be okay leaving it with entire and then leaving the flexibility from there that, you
We
know,
can always vote and make an exception.
if it comes up to be a problem, then I think then we would need to make that decision at that point, right?
Otherwise, they can pick and choose what they want to. Come on in. You know, that's, I think I'll skip the first 15 minutes. Only be here for 15,
Right?
you know.
Okay, so we're good with entire. I also had asked to pull this one because of C, the next line underneath that one. More than one meeting per diem per calendar day. I have had, you know, meetings at Scott County on days where there's also a council meeting that night. So I think that one becomes a problem at times as well. And I think there's opportunity where there's other committee assignments that could happen earlier in the day. I think the one piece of that where, you know, we would maybe need to make a determination is like, for instance, tonight, council meetings
Council meeting
and
workshop.
then a workshop following. I think we could devise this to be, say, you know, how do we phrase this to put in there so that it's, you know, a combination meeting of one location like this is one per diem, right? You know, council meeting, maybe it says something like a council meeting followed by a workshop is counted as one per diem.
Or consecutive meetings at same location.
Or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Consecutive meetings at same location.
yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I like that language.
Mhm. Okay. Leroy, you also wanted to.
No, that was the one that.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on this one that anybody wants to,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, Bob?
could I suggest for B3 that you give yourself a little flexibility because the way it's written, it's either all or nothing. You either attend the whole meeting. It doesn't give you the authority under your ordinance to kind of waive it. So maybe you might want to consider must attend the entire meeting unless otherwise, agreed to by the city council. You're going to review claims. And if somebody has an issue, they could dispute it, and you'd put it to a vote. But I think you want to give a little bit of flexibility to people if they miss the, like Pledge of Allegiance as Abe said,
Okay, so you're suggesting just adding that additional language at the end of that, must attend entire meeting unless approved by the city council?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Anything else?
So how are we proposing to write C? Are we rewriting that? Or is that just another sentence that says unless it's not consecutive meetings in a different location, at the same location?
Yeah, I think we were rewriting. I think our suggestion was to, Kathy, I saw you taking notes on that one.
So I just have the language that you talked about, which was the consecutive meetings at same location,
Mhm.
and I'll wordsmith.
But
C
could I
to-
just suggest, neither mayor nor any council member may receive more than one meeting per diem per calendar day for consecutive meetings at same location. Which just basically defines it, and then
Right.
anything beyond that isn't this,
Yeah,
and just leave it
so
at
that
that.
pretty much, all that pretty much does is take like this situation like tonight.
This
Council meeting,
particular
that
situation,
workshop, having this, consecutively following each other at the
Yep.
same location as one meeting.
it
that really
specifically
addresses
says
that
it's what's
specific.
denied,
Right.
and then anything else is subject to review.
Yep.
Okay,
How's our lawyer feel?
I have to leave at 9, so. We get that approved.
Well, this doesn't take effect until 24.
Sorry.
What does Bob say?
Bob, is that sufficient?
Yes, I think that's sufficient.
Okay,
Okay,
I think that captures what you are trying to do, And there are many times where you might have a meeting at Scott County in the morning because they only work during the day, and then you'll have a council meeting at night. So I don't think you want to be too restrictive.
right. Okay, Any other questions or thoughts on that? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve ordinance 2023-08 with the noted changes.
So moved.
All right, Jay,
I will second.
thank you, Abe. So I've got a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2023-08, and the ordinance to set the city council salaries. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody deny? Hearing none, motion passes. All right. Moving on, staff and city council member reports. Kathy or staff, do you have anything?
I don't have anything beyond. We've been working budget and more budget really right at the moment and on all the pieces that we've been working on, so.
Okay. Council, Leroy.
We got Casey's addition done, the culvert cleaning and jetting and so forth. So that's done.
Then you said that report was that there's some culverts there that are collapsed, corroded.
They're only 50 years old. So, yeah. He has a list, we get the list.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Then with that, motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Abe.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. Motion and second to adjourn the city council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
I
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.